This is Stacy, and we're going to talk about Chapter 7 or 27, Role Transition. One of the things that we can do to get better prepared for the future is to understand the roles of nursing managers, whether we're intended to be one or we're not, knowing what they go through as they transition into a leadership role and how others can be supportive in that will help us all function in collegial ways. Here are the objectives to be covered. So transition, remember that we, all of us go through transition. There's big societal transitions that are usually accompanied by some society support, and even a change in job usually involves some kind of farewell party. So when we think about big transitions in society, such as weddings, funerals, or even presidential elections, a ceremony usually marks that occasion. And even when people change jobs, those left behind often have a party to say goodbye. When these changes are less subtle, marking the transition may not be as evident. So, maybe if you make a lateral change in management, those are kind of subtle. So marking transitions. When we get engaged, we celebrate. When we get married, we celebrate. We celebrate babies. Divorce, maybe we celebrate, maybe we don't. Loss of job. People don't want to talk about loss of job unless you're moving up at the next employment setting. And remember that sometimes we in organizations mark transition with welcome to new people. Here's all the regs and rules that you have to work within. We don't celebrate and welcome them as an employee. Instead, we welcome them with rules and regulation. So transition, change in roles can be painful or it can be exciting. It's influenced by culture and support. At work, we can plan for most transitions, but exceptions do occur. Maybe the chief nurse officer is suddenly terminated, a nurse manager becomes terminally ill, or business transition for a spouse causes a staff member to leave. The key point is that when role transitions happen, whether we're a manager, we're a leader, we're a staff nurse, we're a follower, we need to be supportive. As a leader, manager, followers, we all intertwine like a piece of rope in which no single strand is found. The roles of leading, following, and managing are intertwined. This is especially true for the manager. The transition from a staff nurse role to a nurse manager / leader role can occur overnight. So it is important to think about how that role fits together and how managers differ from followers. I wanted to share a little information. We've gone over this before, but just to go back and think about leaders. What is a leader? What makes an effective leader? Remember that I had it marked here in my book, and I'm having trouble finding what I wanted to read to you. It's left me. I'll go to followers for you, and I'm sorry about that pause. Followers. The secret to leadership is never to ask others to do what you're not willing to do yourself. Remember, followership involves knowing when and how to assume the role of a leader when necessary, and the organization is essentially a community of many leaders and many followers, and frequently changing places depends on a particular activity that is occurring. A follower is an individual who takes on another role and who acts in accordance with and supports and advocates ideas and opinions of others. Without both leaders and followers, there can be no unity and no successful goal-directed activity. So it is important that we're willing at times to be a leader and that we're willing at times to be a follower, which is essential for us as we make this transition into the BSN world. So leaders interact with peers Managers interact with the person being supervised, administrators, supervisors, regulating agencies, and followers interact with supervisors and peers. Every role creates a change in work task, leadership hierarchy, productivity demands, shifts in all relations, including your relationship with yourself. So every role has a different demand. It has a different set of tasks, it has a different set of hierarchy, a different set of productivity demands, and depending on what role you are in, you have a different set of relationships, and you see yourself differently. So remember that as we think about our roles as leaders, managers, and followers. Roles. We need to think about responsibilities, opportunities, lines of communication, expectation, and support. Responsibilities. Each position has a certain task for which the position holder is responsible. When we think about opportunities, possibilities represent opportunities for a manager to influence the organization or maybe the unit's goals. Lines of communication is a critical one. It represents the lines of communication. Although the manager may have many informal lines of communication, there are some very structured and formal lines of communication. These include up and down within the nursing division and across with other disciplines and departments such as lab, x-ray, outpatient clinic. You have to be able to listen and to speak clearly and intelligently. That is really critical for your success. Expectations. Clear expectations equals less role confusion. Being clear about your own expectation is really important. Additionally, you need to consider the expectations of others, your boss, your peers, and your staff. Each of these people probably have a different set of expectations. If you're clear about your own, you can help others frame their expectations in reference to yours. Otherwise, you're responding to multiple and not necessarily compatible sources of input. Support. All roles are shaped to agree by support and services that others provide. Each role has some available support. When a new position is being considered, it is important to evaluate whether support is available in areas in which a manager may lack knowledge or skill. Support may even mean the difference between success and failure. Support is derived from families and friends too, but however, we can control and influence only what happens in the workplace. Setting up formal expectations for support helps transition you into your new role. Mentor. It's important to be mentored, be a mentor, and just seek out opportunities to mentor. What is a mentor? Mentors are close, trusted, experienced counselors or guides. They are accomplished and more experienced individual, and usually, but not always, in the same profession of the person they are mentoring. What are some myths about mentors? The best way to succeed is to have a mentor. The reality is mentoring is important and can have a significant difference in career development of many individuals, but it is not necessarily essential for success or survival. Another myth is mentoring is always beneficial. The reality is that although there are numerous benefits to a mentoring relationship, there are also limitations as well, such as the difficulty in sustaining the intensity required of both a participant over time and the keeping up that relationship. The mentor should be older. Another myth is that the mentor should be older than the person being mentored. The reality is, it's quite possible that more experienced, accomplished individual in a relationship is younger chronologically. And one more myth. A person can have only one mentor at a time. The reality, although it may be difficult to maintain close, intense relationships with several mentors, so it really isn't possible to have multiple mentors. What mentors look for? What should we look for in our mentor? They should be intelligent, a self-starter, someone who's looking for new challenges, has good interpersonal and communication skills. They're a risk taker, they're a hard worker, they're someone who has and understands ideas and is open to new ideas. They have an integrity, they have a sense of humor. So it is important for us to think about being a mentor and always to be open to the possibility of mentoring, which means sharing your knowledge and expertise and guiding someone who is new in a position. So making transitions. When transitions are good, it is always wise to praise the predecessor. Theoretically, this person who was admired and valued. So what this is talking about is when you get transitioned into a role, did you take a predecessor who was doing well, or did you take a predecessor's job who maybe got fired? So let's talk about this again. If you took a predecessor who was doing well, it is always wise to praise that predecessor. Theoretically, this person was somebody who was admired and valued. Capitalize on this and let that person know you know, and to let the team know how smart they were to have this predecessor in place. Celebrate that person's accomplishments and be public about it. When transitions are not so positive, it is easy to get pulled into the demeaning the previous person. Obviously, this is total unwise if no other reason than it creates staff distrust when they think they could be the next one who gets demeaned. It is equally important not to cover up that predecessor's mistakes. Rather than dwell on what didn't work in the past, the most useful strategy is to focus on the future and what will happen immediately to change the situation. Because a team may feel conflicted about loyalties and trust, one of the first steps should be to create the team. It is also important to think about whether you should be silent about the past and apologize that it happened, create a finale to the past, or simply move on. And those decisions flow from particular situations themselves, so there's not a set answer to that. Promoting success. 4 key strategies may be used to promote success. The first is personal, and the last 3 are organizational. Your personal strengths really come into play when you are making a transition. Knowing your personal strengths, being clear about why you are committed to a particular role, and using your personal character, maintaining your self-respect, and being flexible are characteristics you have. And no matter what system you are in, using these strengths during the transition helps keep you focused on the work to be done. In some cases, you may want to negotiate the role. For example, based on personal needs, you may choose to vary the hours that you prefer to work from the traditional hours in the organization. In doing so, you might discuss how you could modify some role expectations so this factor provides added value to the organization. Having a mentor or a sponsor or a coach can be productive. Someone with those type of skills can help you develop your skills and link you with others to provide further support, which we might call networking. Finally, through formal and degree-granting opportunities or through informal workshops and conferences, the latest thinking about management development and success strategies can be assessed. So in my mind, that means you need to stay educated and to continue to be on top of what's new in the healthcare world and what is a vision for the future of healthcare, and make sure that you're working towards that. So roles. When you're going from that old role to that new role, making a smooth transition to the next role you assume depends on your personal strengths and your abilities, and capitalizing on your strengths and the resources of the organization. So as you guys decide to transition, again, I wish you the best.